Yo, 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 what is going on, COD Familia? It is your boy BN. Today, we are hanging out in Kingdom 266 because I read something here that I don't know, I really want to say it shocked me, but I thought it was interesting that it was so public in that way. And most of you know, I have a character in every kingdom. I like reading kingdom mails. I like reading through sometimes system mails that they're doing maybe beta tests that you'll end up getting notified of in certain kingdoms. It's nice to be able to kind of see what's going on within the kingdoms internally, especially for those that use king's mails the way that they're intended to be used. But I wanted to talk today about something I saw, and again, I'm sure some of you will be on one side of the fence and the other with this. But as always, if you enjoy the content, make sure you throw us out, because it helps out a lot. Now, you might be asking, well, boss, why are we concerned about what mails 266 sends? Well, 266, arguably, is one of the top kingdoms in the game based on power at the moment. You could say that they're probably effortlessly within the top 10, maybe even within the top 5 or 6, right, based on power. They're also one of the only 4 full status kingdoms that are in the Gen 2 KVK kingdom pool, which is the largest KVK kingdom pool in the game at the moment. Now, the mail in question that we're going to be showing is this one. So this was posted on the 5th, so about 12 days ago, a little bit less than 2 weeks. And I guess what I probably should do now that I'm really thinking about it is let me skadoosh myself over and then I'll move this here so I can read this like left to right. Does that look? Hopefully that looks a little bit better where it looks like I'm looking left at it, right? So I'll look left in the camera. So let's start by reading. So it says, and this is the English version, right? But I think it was like a translator, right? So it says, except for, good morning, everyone, where it says, are you a stowaway? That's good. Except for registered resource providers and registered private alliances, any alliance that is not applied will be regarded as a stowaway and burned. If you have not found me to register, please contact me quickly. RAC, Mama Grandma. Resource dealers can only apply for the Forgotten Lands and Solovia. I think it was Sophrostia. Other areas are temporarily closed. All farms are not allowed to enter the level 2 area. Violators will be warned, and those who refuse to listen will be demolished. Please cooperate with the kingdom. PS farm account should not exceed 15 million. Combat power, if it exceeds, please delete troops. And then you see this is the English version, right? So they kind of did 2 ones there, which I like. I actually think that's really nice that they take the time to write it up one way and then either translate it or write it up in English, because sometimes it's actually better if you do an individual write-up, or if you do the translate, then at least proofread it so you can kind of work out anything that may not have converted all the way to your liking. So the English one down here says, except for registered RSS vendors and registered alliance shells, any alliance that is not applied will be regarded as an illegal immigrant, right? So you can see some different translation there already. And will be destroyed or burned. If you haven't registered yet, please contact me. RSS vendors can only land in the Forgotten Lands and or Sophrostia. Other areas are not available at the moment. All farms are prohibited from entering Zone 2. Violators will be warned, and those shells who refuse to follow will be demolished. Please cooperate. Let's maintain a better planning and building in Home Kingdom. And then we get the PS power of all farm accounts not exceed 15 mil. Please delete troops or migrate out if exceeds. Grandma, thank you. Love you. Okay. So the thing I wanted to talk about here was this thing on what we know that happens in these games, right? Which is RSS selling. Now, this is a little bit different in that sense because obviously this is a top kingdom, and I'm sure other top kingdoms as well have RSS sellers that they use, or RSS vendors, depending on how you want to refer to them. If we want to be a little bit more, do we want to be dress cash or do we want to go up to business cash, right? On how we title and address them as. For me, I will tell you a brief story. So I got a buddy that is one of my OG friends. I met him pretty much on the last time I was doing my last project in Rise of Kingdoms. And he played State of Survival. Sorry, he played what was it, Westworld or Westland? Something, and I'm forgetting the name of it now. But it's another kingdom builder, and he ran a state slash server slash kingdom in that game. And it was, he ran, he was like the R6 there. It was one of the top kingdoms in the game. And he had a dedicated exclusive deal with an RSS seller to only sell to them. And he was, as he's telling me this, right? Keep in mind, I'm very new to the concept and the idea of this. So to me, in my mind, I'm thinking to myself, well, I just don't know how I feel about that, right? Like it just, I don't know, it doesn't come across to me good in that sense. And that's not because that I think like, you know, anyone who does RSS selling is just a god awful individual. I just always, my initial approach to it was always, well, okay, this is clearly something they're doing beyond the scope of, you know, how the game intended for these things to be used. But again, these people are finding unique and creative ways, very similar to people who like do gold selling in World of Warcraft, right? If that is still a thing. You know, I've seen some videos where it's like it was, at least at one point from what I remember, right, a very prominent thing. And I'm sure there's other examples in other games of these things happening. And so for me, I always felt like, okay, well, this clearly tips the balance, right? It's like, okay, if you have someone in your kingdom, you have to think of it like this. It's like you have someone in your kingdom who is actively farming accounts, which means you're now going to have X amount of extra RSS available for everyone in your kingdom. And then if you think about all the other kingdoms that are not doing that and have someone that's running like, you know, dedicated automatics or, you know, scripts or whatever it may be, and gathering all these extra resources that your kingdom is not doing because you don't have essentially this quote unquote kind of like extra activity, if you will. And you're losing out because obviously you won't have as much RSS to heal, to train by the time war comes. And I always thought it was interesting the way he explained it to me because he always came across as though he was very transparent and he was like, look, I'm only doing it because other people do it. And, you know, it's like if we didn't do it, we'd be at a disadvantage. And what he explained to me at the time, I think it made logical sense. Like I could understand how he was getting from A to Z. And, you know, I look at a mail like this and I think, okay, well, it kind of reminds me of a situation like that where, you know, and this isn't like a shame or a great thing, right? For me, it's just simply observing. And I look at it as, okay, well, clearly 266 knows that other kingdoms do this. Because they understand this is based on my assumption, right, from the mail, reading into the mail, is it's okay, right? If you're not going to beat them, maybe join them, or it's like, look, because they're doing it, why wouldn't we do it? And it's almost kind of ingratiating and having an acceptable, maybe tolerance level for it, if you will. That might be more appropriate to say, of where, okay, this is happening, it's a thing. How can we at least make it so we're not falling behind and we can at least try to be at somewhat even keel? The challenge is that any of the other kingdoms who aren't doing something like this would potentially have some amount of disadvantage if you want to consider it that. And so, however, I guess I'm curious on where some of you land on this. My view, just holistically, is I wish this wasn't a thing in the game. That's where I stand on it. That's where I've always stood on it. I wish this was something that did not have to happen, right? However, I would like to know what some of you think. Are you just on the side of the fence where, hey, this is completely egregious, like, you know, for shame, no one should do this, generally speaking? Or, no, man, listen, if the game allows it and they're not putting any measures in to stop it, that's them basically saying they're okay with it. And then at that point, it's like the Wild Wild West, right? It's free to anyone. Okay. Because I've heard both arguments. For me, I obviously would love for, as I stated, for it to not be in the game. Now, how would we solve this, right? Like, is there a way to solve this whole concept and idea of RSS selling? I actually think that there is. I think one of the ways that you would do this is you would make it so that way you can only transfer resources to people, and or you can only maybe raid cities as another example. But let's start with the transferring part, because I think there's two parts here, right? You have to think about transferring and then raiding. So to me, I feel like, okay, well, maybe you just put something in there where you say like you can't transfer resources until until like your CH24, CH25, maybe CH20, but just a higher CH level, right? Because that would mean that it would take that much longer for quote unquote, right, RSS vendors or RSS selling accounts, that they'd have to invest that much more time into the game, right, to get to that point. Number two is, and it could be something like that or something else, right? Number two is that you also have to consider the rating mechanics of that. I mean, listen, if there's a vendor out there who's doing that, right, you can just go raid the city. Obviously above storehouse, right, protection quotas or minimums. So how do you solve that? Well, you probably would have to put some kind of a mechanic in that says something to the effect of like, look, if you're not participating in maybe KVKs or maybe you put something like that. If you see where I'm going, it would be stated that you can't go and attack. Like maybe you couldn't go and attack this city, or maybe it's something else where maybe you can attack the city like once a month or something, right? Something to that effect. Because I can understand, keep in mind, most of the people that are in a kingdom, if they're high power, majority of them are fighting, majority of them are participating. And obviously you wouldn't want this to maybe slip through the cracks of doing some kind of mechanic where you put in and it potentially affects a stronger account. So you have to consider that and think about how you would play that out as well for the end result. But again, and if you guys have any ideas, I'd love to hear it, right, as well, and what you think, how to maybe solve or how to kind of curve this, if you will. Again, those are just my thoughts on it. I also want to give a shout out to RAC, because they actually do have like some pretty well formatted mails once I get like here, right? Like, again, I really like the spacing here. So I'm going to give some love here too. I like the color coordinating. I like the line breaking. I like the way the formatting is. I like the usage of symbols. Even here, where you have like more of a main header, like a main title header, and then you break it down on points. Again, I love that. I love the spacing here. I like how they're identifying each individual thing. Like, this is actually really nice and very well done for the way that they're formatting this. And also notice like a little bit of changes, like sometimes it's numbers, it's hyphens. I'm okay with that. I'm also okay if you just want to be consistent across the board. I also like how they're not just jamming you with a wall of text. This is one of those things I often talk about. And maybe I'll do more of a deep breakdown on like how to appropriately do what I feel when you're going to disseminate information. But I really like this. Just in these two examples, there's a few more that they have here in the kingdom. But I just want to say, I don't know who's writing the mails here, but and maybe it's multiple people and whomever's just the one who's sending them out. But definitely keep that up, because I'm going to tell you right now, when you break things up like that and you have small portions that an individual is consuming, it makes it a lot easier to not only read it, but to finish it. And that is incredibly important if you're trying to get a good conversion rate on up to everyone in your kingdom who's actually going to read the mails that you send based on the work that you're putting in to craft them. So again, huge shout out. I don't know how, like, I haven't looked at a lot of mails lately, but I'll just say this, I don't see too many. And by too many, I mean probably a handful or less that I have seen in my time looking at mails that look as good as as some of these mails have in this kingdom. So I just want to give a shout out there and say kudos on that. As always, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. That's it for me. As always, until next time, I will catch you later.